The stars had been quiet for 300 years. The Velen Empire controlled a quarter of the galaxy, and they had grown comfortable in their power. They believed they understood war. They believed they understood every species that had ever raised a weapon against them. They were wrong, Admiral. Kira stood on the bridge of her flagship. The eternal dawn, watching the tactical display with calm eyes. 47 Velen warships had surrounded Colony Horizon 7, a small human settlement on the edge of explored space. The colony held 12,000 people, farmers, scientists, children. The Velen had sent a simple message. Surrender or die. Kira had received the distress call 6 hours ago. She had not slept since then. She had not eaten. She had only prepared. Admiral, her communications officer, said, "Earth Command is responding." The screen flickered, and the weathered face of General Tai Wu appeared. He was old now, his hair white, his skin marked by decades of service. But his eyes were sharp. They had seen too much to ever grow soft. "Report," Tai Wu said. 47 enemy vessels, General. They've given us 24 hours to surrender the colony. They're demanding tribute, territory, and complete submission to something called the Velen Empire. Tai Wu was quiet for a moment. Behind him, Kira could see other officers moving, preparing. The whole of humanity was waking up to this new threat. "What do we know about them?" Tai Wu asked. "They've conquered over 200 species. Their empire is 12,000 years old. They believe war is the natural state of all intelligent life. They fight constant small wars to maintain their power." "Constant wars," Tai Wu repeated. The words seemed to pain him. "They've never met us." "No, sir." Tai Wu leaned forward. His voice was quiet but heavy with something ancient. Something tired. "Admiral Kira, I'm giving you full authority. End this. Permanently." Kira understood. Every human officer understood. They had been trained for this moment since childhood. Not trained for victory. Trained for ending? Understood, General? The screen went dark. Kira turned to her crew. They were young, most of them. They had grown up in peace, but they knew their history. They knew what their ancestors had done to each other before humanity reached the stars. The world wars, the resource conflicts, the burning century. Humanity had not forgotten. They had learned. "All ships," Kira said, her voice steady, battle formation. "We move in 1 hour." Far across the void, Commander Roel stood on the bridge of his own flagship. He was tall, even for a Velen, with gray skin and forearms that moved with practiced grace. He had conquered 11 species in his career. He had never lost a battle. This would be easy, he thought. The humans were young. They had only been in space for 5 centuries. They were soft, weak. They would fight a little, then surrender. That was how it always happened. Roel looked at the small blue planet below. Such a tiny colony. Such insignificant creatures. "Commander," his sensor officer said, "human ships approaching." Roel smiled. "How many?" 32 vessels, Commander. They're outnumbered. They'll try to defend the planet, move our fleet into attack position. We'll crush them against their own world. But the human ships did not move to defend the planet. They came straight at the Velen fleet. Roel's smile faded. "What are they doing?" "There. They're charging directly at us, Commander. Suicide. They can't hope to win a direct assault." The human ships grew closer. They were not slowing down. They were not spreading out into defensive positions. They flew in tight formation, aimed like a spear at the heart of the Velen armada. "They're insane," Roel whispered. Then the humans opened fire. Admiral Kira watched the battle unfold with cold precision. Her ships moved as one, each captain knowing exactly what to do. They had trained for this. They had prepared for centuries. The Velen fought like predators. They tried to surround their prey, to wear them down, to make them surrender. They expected the battle to last days, weeks. They expected negotiations, retreats, small victories, and small defeats. The humans gave them none of that. Every shot was aimed at critical systems. Every maneuver was designed to kill, not to wound. The human ships did not try to disable the Velen vessels. They destroyed them. completely, utterly. Within 2 hours, 20 Velen ships were gone. Not damaged. Gone. Commander Roll's officer screamed. We've lost the iron will. The Conqueror's pride is not responding. Roll could not understand what he was seeing. The humans were taking losses too, but they didn't stop. They didn't retreat. When one human ship was destroyed, the others did not pause to mourn. They simply kept killing. Why won't they stop? Roel shouted. Why won't they negotiate? A human transmission cut through the chaos. Admiral Kira's face appeared on his screen. She looked tired. Sad even. But her voice was iron. You came to our world, she said. You threatened our people. You gave us no choice. So we will give you none. The screen went dark. 4 hours later, it was over. Roel floated in the wreckage of his flagship, surrounded by the bodies of his crew. Of the 47 ships he had brought, only 3 survived, and they were running. He managed to reach an escape pod. As he drifted through the debris field, he saw the human ships. They were not celebrating. They were not cheering. They were already helping the survivors. Pulling Velen soldiers from the wreckage, giving them medical care, it made no sense. They had just killed thousands of his people. And now they were saving the rest? With shaking hands, Roel activated his emergency transmitter. His message would take days to reach the Empire, but it had to be sent. They had to know. This is Commander Roel, he said, his voice breaking. The fleet is destroyed. The humans. They are not like any species we have encountered. They do not fight like prey. They do not fight like predators. He paused, trying to find the words. They fight like they want war itself to die. They do not seek victory. They seek ending. Total, complete, permanent ending. They will not stop until the conflict is over. Not paused. Not balanced, over. He looked out at the human ships, still working among the wreckage. Do not underestimate them. Do not provoke them. And whatever you do, do not give them a reason to come for us. He ended the transmission and closed his eyes. Somewhere in the distance, Admiral Kira stood on her bridge and watched her crew work. They had won, but there was no celebration, no joy. Only quiet relief that it was finished. Admiral, her communications officer said softly, Colony Horizon 7 is secure. The civilians are safe. Kira nodded. Good. Begin rescue operations for Velen survivors. And send a message to the enemy ships that escaped. What message, Admiral? Kira thought for a moment. Tell them they're free to go. Tell them we don't want their territory or their tribute. We just want to be left alone. She looked out at the stars. And tell them if they come back, we'll do this again. As many times as we have to, until they finally understand. The message was sent. The survivors fled and across the galaxy. The Velen Empire began to realize that something had changed forever. The Imperial Council had not gathered for 300 years. There had been no need. The Velen Empire was strong. Its enemies were weak. The endless cycle of small wars kept everything in balance, just as it always had. But now the Great Chamber was full. High Sovereign Velen sat upon her throne. Looking down at the assembled advisors, generals, and scholars, she was ancient by any standard, her gray skin marked with the ceremonial scars of 100 victories. She had ruled the Empire for 4 centuries, and she had never seen fear in this room until today.
Speak,
she commanded. Commander Roel stepped forward. He had survived the disaster at Horizon 7, but he was changed. His forearms hung limp at his sides, and his eyes could not stay still. He kept looking at shadows, as if expecting an attack at any moment. My sovereign, he began, his voice unsteady. I brought 47 warships to the human colony. We had numerical superiority. We had experience. We had every advantage. He paused. I returned with 3. A murmur ran through the chamber. Generals exchanged glances. This was impossible. The Velen had not suffered such a defeat in living memory. How? Bellon asked. How did a young species destroy a fleet commanded by one of our finest officers? Roll shook his head. They did not fight as we expected. They did not defend. They did not retreat. They did not negotiate. They simply attacked. with everything they had. They accepted terrible losses just to ensure our destruction. That is foolishness, one of the generals said. No rational species would sacrifice so many for a minor colony. They are not irrational, Roll said quietly. They are something else. Something we have never encountered. Belen raised a hand, silencing the room. She turned to a figure standing in the shadows. Historian Neva, you have studied the species we conquer. What do you know of these humans? Neva stepped forward. She was young for a scholar, barely 2 centuries old, but her mind was sharp. She had spent years studying alien cultures, trying to understand how different species approached war. High Sovereign, she said, the humans are a curious case. They have been spacefaring for only 500 years. But their homeworld. Their history is a record of constant warfare. So they are like us, Belen said. No, High Sovereign. They are nothing like us. Neva activated a display showing images of human history. Cities in flames. Soldiers in trenches. Mushroom clouds rising over burned landscapes. Humans fought each other with terrible ferocity for thousands of years. They invented weapons that could destroy entire cities in an instant. They created poisons that could kill millions. At one point, they built enough weapons to destroy their entire world several times over. The council stared at the images in silence. But then something changed. Neva continued. After their most terrible wars, they began to believe something that no other species has ever truly believed. They began to think that war itself could be ended. Not managed. Not balanced, ended. That is absurd, Belen said. War is the natural state of intelligent life. It always has been. It always will be. We believe that, Neva agreed. Every species we have conquered believe that, but humans do not. They see war as a disease, an infection, something to be cured, not accepted. She looked at the council, her eyes serious. That is why they fight the way they do. They do not seek small victories. They do not want to weaken their enemies and then negotiate favorable terms. They want to end the conflict completely, so that it never happens again. A general laughed. Then they are fools. War cannot be ended. It is eternal, perhaps Neva said. But consider this. If you truly believed, with all your heart, that every war could be the last war, how would you fight? The chamber was silent. You would fight with everything you had, Neva continued. You would accept any sacrifice, suffer any loss, just to reach the end. You would not fight for territory or resources or glory. You would fight for peace. Permanent, lasting peace. She looked at Roel. Commander, when the humans destroyed your fleet, did they pursue the survivors? Roel shook his head slowly. No, they let us go. They rescued our wounded. Gave them medical care, because they do not want enemies, Neva said. They want the war to be over. They wanted you to go home and tell us what happened. They wanted us to understand. Belen leaned forward on her throne. Understand what? That fighting them is pointless. That we cannot win a war of attrition against a species that does not believe in attrition. They will not grow tired. They will not lose interest. They will keep fighting until there is peace, or until one of us is completely destroyed. The council erupted in angry voices. Generals shouted that this was impossible. Advisors demanded action. The idea that a young, weak species could threaten the mighty Velen Empire was unthinkable. But Belen remained quiet, thinking. Far away, on a ship called the Olive Branch, Captain Junho reviewed his orders for the 10th time. He was young for a captain, barely 40 years old. But he had proven himself in the academy, showing a rare combination of military skill and diplomatic patience. That was why they had chosen him for this mission. His ship was not a warship. It carried no heavy weapons, only defensive systems. Its purpose was not to fight, but to talk. Captain, his second-in-command, said, "Are you certain about this?" Lieutenant Minji was standing at his side, her arms crossed, her expression worried. She had served with Junho for 3 years. She trusted him. But this mission seemed like madness. "I'm certain," Junho said. "We're going into enemy territory. With one ship. To offer peace to an empire that has conquered 200 species? Yes. And if they refuse? Junho looked at her. His eyes were calm, but there was something heavy beneath them. Something old and tired, passed down through generations. Then we give them a war so terrible they'll never want another one. Minji stared at him. You say that like it's simple. It is simple, Junho said. Not easy, but simple. We don't want to fight. We just want to be left alone. If they let us, we'll be their best friends in the galaxy. If they don't... He turned back to the viewport, watching the stars streak past. My grandfather fought in the last war on Earth, he said quietly. He told me something once. He said that humans are not natural warriors. We're not built for fighting. Every battle hurts us. Every death wounds us. We hate war more than any species in the galaxy. Then why are we so good at it? Minji asked. Junho smiled, but there was no joy in it, because we hate it. We hate it so much that when we're forced to fight, we fight with everything we have. We don't hold back. We don't pace ourselves. We just want it to end. The only way to end a war quickly is to win completely. He looked at his orders again. The Velen have fought endless wars for 12,000 years. They've never met a species like us. They don't understand that some of us would rather die than live in constant conflict. The olive branch flew on through the darkness, carrying its small crew toward the heart of an empire. Behind them, the human fleet was preparing, not for war, for peace. But if peace failed, they would be ready. They were always ready. It was the burden of a species that had learned, through oceans of blood and mountains of ash, that the only way to end violence was to make it so terrible, so complete, that no one would ever want to start it again. And now they would teach that lesson to the galaxy. The border station hung in empty space, as far from any world or sun. It was a place built for meetings between enemies, neutral ground where species could talk before they fought. Captain Junho watched it grow larger through the viewport of the live branch. The station was old, built by some forgotten species long ago. The Velen had claimed it centuries before. Now it would host the first official meeting between two civilizations. We're being scanned, Lieutenant Minji reported. Multiple weapons are targeting us. Expected, Junho said calmly. Hold position. No sudden movements. The olive branch drifted to a stop. A Velen ship, twice their size, moved to intercept them. It was a warship, its hull covered in weapons. A show of strength. They want to intimidate us, Minji said. Let them. We're not here to be intimidated. A transmission came through. A Velen face appeared on the screen, older than Roel, with more ceremonial scars, but with the same gray skin and 4 arms. I'm Diplomat Theron, the Velen said. You are the representatives of the human species? I am Captain Junho. This is my second in command, Lieutenant Mingi, and our cultural advisor, Dr. Yuna. Dr. Yuna stepped forward. She was older than Junho, with gray streaks in her black hair and kind eyes that had seen much suffering. She had spent her life studying wars, not how to fight them, but how to prevent them. Diplomat Theron, she said, we are honored to meet with you. Theron studied them with cold eyes. You destroyed 44 of our warships. You killed thousands of our soldiers. And now you wish to talk? Yes, Junho said simply. Why? You won the battle. You could have demanded tribute, territory. You could have kept our prisoners as slaves. We don't want any of those things. Theron was silent for a moment. Then he gestured for them to board the station. The meeting room was vast and empty. Junho and his small team sat on one side of a long table. Theron and a group of Velen advisors sat on the other. Guards stood at every door, their weapons visible. So, Theron said, what do you want? Junho placed a document on the table. These are our terms. Theron picked up the document and read it. His expression changed several times. Confusion, disbelief, and finally suspicion. This is a joke, he said. It is not. You ask for nothing. No territory. No tribute. No submission. You simply want peace. Permanent peace, Ginho corrected. Total and complete. We want free trade between our peoples. We want non-aggression agreements. We want our borders respected, and we will respect yours. Theron threw the document on the table. Where is the demand for revenge? You must want something for the lives we tried to take. We want those lives to be the last lives lost. On both sides, Dr. Yuna spoke up. Diplomat Theron, I have studied your empire. I know that you have been at war for 12,000 years. I know that you see conflict as natural, as eternal. It is natural, Theron said. It is the way of all intelligent life. It was our way too, Yuna said softly. For thousands of years, we fought and killed each other. We invented terrible weapons. We destroyed cities. We nearly destroyed our entire world. She paused. But then we stopped. We decided that war was not inevitable. We decided that peace was possible. Not easy, not automatic, but possible. Theron shook his head. You are young. You do not understand the galaxy. Peace is an illusion. The moment you stop fighting, your enemies grow stronger. We understand that, Junho said. That's why we're offering friendship, not weakness. We don't want to fight you, but we can, and we will. As many times as necessary, Theron looked at him with new interest. You threaten us while asking for peace. We're being honest. We have no interest in conquest. We have no desire to rule your empire. We just want to live quietly, trade fairly, and never fire another shot. But if you force us to fight, we will fight, and we will not stop until the war is truly over. The negotiations continued for hours. Theron asked many questions. He tried to find the trick, the hidden agenda, the secret demand. There was none. Finally, Theron stood. I must report to the High Sovereign. She will decide. Yunho nodded. We'll wait. The Velen delegation left. Junho and his team returned to the Olive Branch. 3 days passed. Then the answer came. Theron's face appeared on the screen, but his expression was different now. There was something like pity in his eyes. The High Sovereign has rejected your terms, he said. She believes your offer of peace is a sign of weakness. She has ordered a full invasion of human space. Junho closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they were steady. How many ships? 200. The largest fleet assembled in a millennium. They will arrive at your border in 12 days. Minji stepped forward, her face pale. Diplomat Theron, please. This doesn't have to happen. Tell your sovereign that we're not weak. Tell her what happened to Commander Roel's fleet. I have told her, Theron said. She believes Roel was incompetent. She believes the full might of the Empire will crush you easily. She's wrong, Junho said quietly. But it is not my decision, Dr. Yuna spoke up. Diplomat Theron, I predicted this outcome. I knew your sovereign would see peace as weakness. But I want you to remember something. What? We offered you friendship first. We came to you with open hands. We asked only to be left alone. Remember that in the days to come, Theron was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I will remember. The transmission ended. Minji turned to Junho. What now? Junho was already moving to the communications console. He began entering codes, high-level military channels, emergency frequencies, the direct line to Earth Command. Now we prepare, he said. We gave them every chance. We showed them we meant no harm. They chose war anyway. He looked at his crew. They were scared, but they were ready. Send a message to the Velen fleet, Junho said. Let them know we received their answer. What should the message say? Minji asked. Junho thought for a moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was heavy with centuries of inherited sorrow. Tell them, we offered you peace. Remember that you chose this. The message was sent. Across the galaxy, the human fleet began to move, not to defend, not to retreat, to end in her throne room. High Sovereign Belen smiled when she heard that the humans had sent only one small ship to negotiate. It confirmed what she already believed. They were weak. They were afraid. They would fall like all the others. She did not know that the humans had sent only one ship because they had hoped truly, desperately hoped that one ship would be enough. She did not understand that humans always tried peace first. But she would learn. They would all learn, Commander. Roel stood on the bridge of his new flagship. Watching the 200 warships of the invasion fleet move through human space, he should have felt proud. He should have felt excited. This was the largest military force assembled in 1,000 years. Sent to crush a young and arrogant species instead. He felt afraid. Commander, his sensor officer said. We're approaching the first human colony. Roel looked at the tactical display. The planet was called New Sol, home to 3 million humans. It should have been heavily defended. There should have been a fleet waiting for them. There was nothing. Scan again, Raul ordered. I have scanned, Commander. The planet is empty. The population has been evacuated. All defense platforms have been powered down. Roel felt a chill run through his body. They're not defending? No, Commander. The invasion fleet moved on. They passed colony after colony, world after world, all empty, all silent. The humans had pulled back everything, every ship, every soldier, every civilian. High Sovereign Bellin, watching from far away, laughed when she heard the reports. They run, they flee. See how cowardly they are? But Roel did not laugh. He remembered the battle at Horizon 7. He remembered how the humans had charged straight into his fleet, accepting terrible losses, just to destroy him. This was not retreat. This was something else. Commander, his officer said suddenly, we're receiving reports from the homeworld. Roel turned. What reports? The officer's face went pale. A human fleet has appeared at the edge of our home system. Over 100 ships? Roel's blood turned to ice. While the Velen invasion force had been slowly moving through empty human space, the humans had circled around them. They had ignored all military targets, all strategic positions. They had gone straight for the heart of the Empire. How did they move so fast? Roel whispered. No one had an answer. Admiral Kira watched the Velen homeworld grow larger in her viewport. It was a beautiful planet, blue and green, much like Earth. Billions of people lived there. Thousands of years of history rested on its surface. She did not want to be here. Admiral, her communications officer said. We're being hailed by the Planetary Defense Force. Put them through. A Velen admiral appeared on the screen. His forearms spread wide in a gesture of challenge. You dare approach the heart of the Empire? You will be destroyed. Our defenses are impenetrable. Kira looked at him calmly. Your defenses are old. Your fleet is far away, chasing shadows in our territory. We are here. You are alone. You cannot hope to win. We don't hope to win, Kira said. We're going to end this. She cut the transmission. The battle for the Velen homeworld was short and brutal. The planetary defenses were strong, but they were designed to fight a different kind of war, slow war, a war of attrition, a war where both sides knew the fighting would go on for years. The humans did not fight that way. They struck at the orbital stations first, destroying them with precise, overwhelming force. They did not try to capture them. They did not try to negotiate their surrender. They simply removed them. Then they moved to the shipyards. Every facility that could build warships, repair warships, or supply warships was systematically eliminated. Finally, they surrounded the planet itself. Admiral Kira broadcast a message to the entire world. We don't want your planet. We don't want your people. We want this war to end. Surrender, and it ends now. Refuse, and we will make war so costly that your children's children will fear the very concept of conflict. High Sovereign Balan, watching from her throne room, refused. She still believed this was a bluff. She still believed that no species would truly commit to total destruction. There had to be limits. There had to be a point where the humans would stop and negotiate. She was wrong. The human fleet did not land troops. They did not invade. They simply destroyed everything military. Every base, every weapon, every ship, every factory that could make weapons. They were not cruel. They did not target civilians. They did not bomb cities, but they were thorough. They were complete. They were final. On the ground, Soldier Doyon led his squad through a ruined military base. He was young, only 23 years old, with scared eyes and steady hands. He had joined the military because he believed in peace. That seemed like a contradiction, but he understood it perfectly. "Sergeant," one of his soldiers said, "I found survivors." Doyan moved to the corner of a collapsed building. 3 Velen soldiers were trapped under debris, injured but alive. They looked up at him with hatred and fear. "Kill us," one of them spat. "Finish it." Doyan knelt beside them and began to clear the debris. "Monique, over here." The Velen soldier stared at him. "What are you doing?" "Helping you. We are your enemies." Doyan looked at him with tired eyes. "You were my enemies. The war is over. Now you're just wounded people." The medic arrived and began treating the Velen soldiers. They were too shocked to resist. "I hate this," Doyan said quietly to himself. "I hate every second of it." "Sergeant," an older woman named Yunji heard him. "Then why do you do it?" Doyan stood up and looked at the burning sky. "Because I hate war more than I hate fighting. And the only way to end a war is to win it. Completely." He picked up his rifle and moved on. 3 days later, the Velen military was broken. Not defeated, not weakened, broken. They had no ships left, no stations, no ability to project power. In 3 days, the humans had done what no species had ever done in 12,000 years, and then they stopped. The human fleet held its position around the planet. They did not land occupation forces. They did not demand tribute. They simply waited. Far away, the Velen invasion fleet received the news. 200 ships, the pride of the Empire, suddenly realized they were stranded. Their homeworld was surrounded. Their families were hostages. The war they had come to fight was already over. Roel collapsed into his command chair. "It's impossible," he whispered. "We were winning. We were taking their territory." His officer shook his head. "Their territory was empty, Commander. They let us take it. They knew it didn't matter how." "How could they know?" "Because they don't fight for territory. They fight for ending. They sacrificed their colonies to strike at our heart. They never cared about winning battles. They only cared about winning the war." Roel understood now. He understood everything. The humans had not retreated out of fear. They had retreated to draw the Velen fleet away. They had sacrificed their homes, their worlds, their history, just to reach the Velen homeworld faster, and now the Empire had to choose. Continue a war they had already lost, or accept peace. A transmission came from Admiral Kira. She appeared on every screen in the Empire. Calm and tired, her voice carrying the weight of all her ancestors. "People of the Velen Empire," she said, "we did not want this war. We came to you with open hands. We asked only to be left alone. You chose to invade. You chose to threaten our families. So we ended it." She paused. "We are not going to occupy your world. We are not going to take your territory. We are not going to demand tribute or revenge. We only want one thing: peace. Permanent, lasting peace." She looked directly into the camera. "We are sending a representative to negotiate. General Taiwu, the commander of our forces, will meet with your High Sovereign. This is not a demand. It is an invitation." She took a breath. "Understand this. We can do this again. We can do this every time you force us to. We hate war. We hate it more than you can possibly understand. And that hate gives us the strength to end it. Every time. Forever." The transmission ended, and across the broken empire, the Velen people began to understand what it meant to face a species that did not fight for victory. A species that fought for endings. General Taiwu looked through the great doors of the Velen throne room. He was old, his body marked by decades of service, but he moved with dignity. Behind him, only 2 guards followed. He had refused a larger escort. "They want to kill me," he had told his officers. 100 guards won't stop them. If they want peace, 2 guards are enough. The throne room was enormous, built to impress and intimidate. Velen warriors lined the walls, their weapons visible, their eyes hostile. At the far end, High Sovereign Belen sat upon her ancient throne. Looking down at the small human with cold fury, Taiwu walked the length of the room without hesitation. He stopped at the base of the throne and bowed his head, not in submission, but in respect. "High Sovereign," he said. "Thank you for receiving me." Belen stared at him. Her world was surrounded by enemy ships. Her military was destroyed. Her empire was broken. And this old human stood before her, calm and polite, as if they were meeting for tea. "You come here as a conqueror," she said. "Do not pretend otherwise." "I come here as a messenger," Taiwu replied. "Nothing more. Deliver your message. Tell me your demands. What tribute must we pay? What territory must we surrender? What humiliations must we endure?" Taiwu reached into his coat and pulled out a document. He walked up the steps of the throne. The guards moved to stop him. But Belen raised a hand and placed the document in her hands. "These are our terms," he said. Belen opened the document. She read it once. Then again. Then a third time. "This is the same offer," she said slowly. "The same terms you offered before the war?" "Yes. Total peace. Free trade, non-aggression. No tribute. No submission." "Yes." Belen looked at him with utter confusion. "You could take everything. Your ships surround my world. My fleet is stranded. My people are defenseless. You could rule us for 1,000 years. "We could," Taiwu agreed. "Then why don't you?" Taiwu turned and looked around the throne room. At the warriors. At the ancient banners. At the 12,000 years of history that filled every corner. "Because taking everything would mean we'd have to fight to keep it," he said. "Forever. There would be rebellions, resistance, new wars. Endless violence." He turned back to face her. "We're tired, High Sovereign. Humanity is tired. We've been tired for 1,000 years. We don't want subjects. We don't want an empire. We just want neighbors. Friends if possible. But at the very least, neighbors who don't try to kill us." Belen shook her head. "I don't understand. No species in the history of the galaxy has ever shown such restraint. Victory is meaningless without domination." Taiwu smiled sadly. "Victory is meaningless. Period." He walked back down the steps and stood in the center of the room, speaking not just to Belen, but to every Velen present. "Humanity learned something long ago," he said. "Something that took us 10,000 years of bloodshed to understand. War is not a natural state. It is a failure. Every battle is a tragedy. Every victory is a wound that never fully heals." He looked at his own hands. "We fought each other for centuries. We invented weapons that could burn entire cities in an instant. We created poisons that killed millions. We came so close to destroying ourselves that we could taste the ashes on our tongues." He lowered his hands. "And then we stopped. Not because we became weak. Not because we were conquered. We stopped because we realized that winning wasn't enough. We could win every war and still lose everything that mattered." He looked up at Belen. "We fight only so that one day no one has to fight again. That's all we've ever wanted. That's all we want now." Belen was silent for a long time. The throne room was quiet. Even the warriors seemed to be holding their breath. Finally, she spoke. "What guarantee do we have that you won't betray us? That you won't return in a century with new demands?" "None," Taiwu said honestly. "Except our word. In our history, in 500 years of space travel, we have never broken a peace treaty. We have never started a war. We have only ended them." He stepped forward. "High Sovereign, we could have destroyed your world. We could have killed billions. We chose not to. Not because we are weak, but because we are tired of killing. Give us peace, and you will never see our warships again. Give us trade, and we will make you richer than war ever could." He extended his hand, a human gesture of friendship. "We want neighbors, not enemies. The choice is yours." Belen looked at his hand for a long moment. Then slowly she descended from her throne. She walked down the steps, past her guards, till she stood face to face with the old human general. She extended one of her forehands and grasped his. "Peace," she said quietly. "We accept your terms." The treaty was signed that day. The Velen Empire, for the first time in 12,000 years, knew true peace. Not a pause between wars. Not a temporary ceasefire. Real, lasting peace. 50 years later, historian Neva completed her final work, a comprehensive account of the Human-Velen War. It became required reading for every species in the galaxy. Her conclusion was simple. Humans are not pacifists. They are not weak. They are something far more dangerous. Idealists with the will to enforce their ideals. They fight not for glory, not for territory, not for resources. They fight for an end, and they will pay any price to reach it. They are the most peaceful species in the galaxy and the most terrifying. Captain Junho, now old and gray, visited the joint Human-Velen Memorial on the 50th anniversary of the peace. The memorial was built on a small moon, halfway between human and Velen space. It carried the names of everyone who had died in the war. From both sides, he walked among the stone pillars, reading names he did not recognize. Behind him, tourists and historians wandered the grounds. Among them was a young Velen child, barely old enough to walk. The child approached him. Her mother tried to stop her, but Junho waved her on. He knelt down to the child's level. "Are you a human?" the child asked. "Yes. My teacher says humans hate war." Junho nodded. "We do? Then why are you so good at it?" Junho looked at the child. She was too young to understand what had happened here, too young to know the weight of history. But she deserved an honest answer, "'Cause we hate it," he said softly. More than anything, he stood and looked out at the stars. "We hate it so much that when we're forced to fight, we make sure we never have to fight again. We don't want to be good at war. We just want it to end." The child thought about this for a moment. Then she nodded, as if it made perfect sense. "Okay," she said, and ran back to her mother. Junho watched her go. A Velen child, playing in a memorial built for peace. 50 years ago, her people had tried to conquer humanity. Now they were neighbors. Friends, even. It had cost so much. So many lives. So much pain. But it was worth it. He turned and walked toward the exit. Passing the great inscription carved into the memorial's entrance, the words were written in both human and Velen languages. Asterisk. "We learned to end wars because we could no longer bear to fight them." Asterisk. Junho read the words one more time, then stepped out into the light of a galaxy at peace. Behind him, the memorial stood silent, a testament to everything humanity had lost and everything they had gained. And in the quiet spaces between the stars, the lesson spread: war could be ended. Peace could be permanent. It only required the will to fight for it. The humans had shown the way. Now, it was up to the galaxy to follow.